All right. Good evening, everybody out there in YouTube land. It is I, Matt Yancic, and as you can see, I'm a little bit rusty. For those of you that were watching from the very opening credits and until we transitioned to just me here, you saw I went to the view of like four people. It's been a minute, as the kids say, since I've done my last stream. Um, Welcome to the channel. Welcome to Roleplayer with 1,000 Faces. I am your host for tonight's festivities. And each and every time I do one of these things, which I used to say every other week, which is not every other week now, it's every few months or so. I do enjoy bringing to you people from around the role playing realm, different aspects of role playing, different aspects of storytelling, different aspects of legendary tales and things like that. So thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Tonight's episode is a little bit focused on something a little bit different, something that I haven't really done before, but I'm excited to sort of take a look at tonight. Tonight I'm with the crew, some of the crew, from Rising Phoenix Game Convention. And we're going to be talking a little bit about what it takes to put a convention together, Rising Phoenix specifically itself, the different moving parts to putting a con together, and basically how it works. Conventions, I have to confess, conventions are not something that I have often gone to. It's only been recently that I have been in the so as some of you know, I used to live in Alaska where they don't really have a lot of conventions and there's not like a huge there's a small community, but not like a huge gaming community. But since I moved to the Boston area, I've sort of discovered there's this whole big like wide world here that I hadn't known about. And so one of the things when I came to Boston, one of the problems I had, and you can actually ask my mom, one of the problems I've always had is making friends. And I was trying to meet some new people. So I grew up in the New England area, but I was really more of like a Connecticut and New Hampshire kind of guy. And I skipped over, even though most of my family is located in Massachusetts, I wasn't through here a lot. I was mostly just hanging out with cousins and things like that. So one great thing for me, at any rate, about and one special thing, I guess, for me about conventions is that there's a great opportunity to connect and to make friendships, or even just acquaintances, or even just talk to strangers. I think it's a really since COVID, we have all been using a lot of Zoom, like I am using now, and I've been able to connect with people all around the world. But when I first came here to Mass, uh, just about 15 minutes before COVID hit, when I got off the plane, um, I was just, where am I going to meet friends? How am I going to make some friends? What am I going to do? I didn't know. And conventions were a place that I turned for that. Well, one of the places I turned for that. So we're going to be here tonight with three people who have been very kind in agreeing to come on the program. Tonight, I am here with Scott Legault, Petra Jackl, and David Clarkson. David, did I get your last name correct there? Was that the correct?
Yes, you did.
Yes. Um,
Like it's hard.
it was really hard. I was really nervous about that one. I practiced it many times before we came on tonight, and it took me a little while. I was in front of the mirror all evening long trying to get it right. Thank
Well,
you,
I
three.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anything to
Hmm.
make my guests comfy and feel welcome. Thank you all for joining me tonight. I was wondering if you could maybe each briefly like introduce yourselves and tell us maybe just in a sentence or two what you do for the convention, and then we'll just sort of jump into the questions and finding out more.
All right, I guess I'll start. I'm Scott Legault. I am the con chair, and in the reality, the convention was my idea, my crazy idea that I was able to convince a bunch of other people to get involved with. So, but I got permission from Petra first.
Oh, The real boss, I guess, right? Have I said too much?
Mm.
Oh no,
No, no. So
I've said too much.
we had another business for years, and I was always like, hey, we could do a bigger event, like a convention. They'd be like, no, no, we can't do that. Then one day she came to me and she said, you know, maybe we could talk about this convention thing if you can convince some other people to get involved. And so I went out and convinced, I think at the time, 15 of my closest friends to get
That's right.
involved. So
You convinced? Now, by convinced, you mean strong-armed?
you can call it whatever you want.
Scott can be very persuasive and persistent, and he's very good at that.
Ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen, we are already off the rails, and I have been duly designated as to keep Scott in line. He has been monopolizing the introductions tonight. Scott, I don't make me mute you.
Oh
Okay. I
boy.
Why
see, I
don't
see the
we?
big, I
Why
see
don't?
the big X.
Why don't we move along to our two other guests? Hello, two other guests.
Okay.
How
Petra,
are
you want
you
to go
both?
first? Yeah.
It's okay. Go ahead, honey. We're already talking.
Okay, great. My name is David Clarkson. I was one of the convinced of
Hmm.
Scott's group of friends. He
Converted?
came to me and said, converted. I was swept up in his enthusiasm. And to be honest,
Hmm.
that is a big part of it. Scott has boundless enthusiasm for this idea. And absolutely, it's it motivates you.
Hmm.
The job I primarily do at the convention is hotel liaison. So I'm the one that reaches out to the hotel, deals with all the hotel problems, and deals with all of that physical aspect of it. But of course, just like any convention, I wear a lot of hats. I get involved in lots of other things.
Hmm. Cool.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, David. And
sure.
Petra, how about you?
Um, my name is Petra Jackl, and I am the general manager. I also run a bunch of subcommittees as well, and generally try to just kind of keep everything in order and make sure everything goes off okay. I am the one that wrangles the chickens to make sure everything goes okay.
By the
And
chickens, you mean
if,
Scott?
I'm not saying a word.
Oh, okay.
Smart, smart, very smart.
And yes, indeed, I fought the idea of a con for quite a few years.
Years. Yes.
Uh, and then I finally said, okay, as long as we have other people doing it with us,
Hmm.
let's do this. So that's kind of how that started.
Well, thank you. We're going to put a pin in fighting the idea of a con and talk more about that later because I think it'd be a great counterpoint. Like, I'd really love to hear
Hmm.
like the pros and cons of running a con. Um, but
Hmm.
Run time.
thank you all again, once again for coming on the program. Why don't we start off just by kind of explaining the broad strokes of Rising Phoenix? Like where and when does it happen, and what do you primarily focus on? What sort of attendees do you have? How about
Hmm.
and who are the people that make it happen?
Sure.
Great. So the convention is in April, and actually this year it's April 19th through the 21st. We particularly aim for that week in Massachusetts because it's school break week for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
We try to be able, the parents can bring their kids with them, because we're a big proponent of kids in gaming. Kids are the future of gaming, and but other than that, it's at the DoubleTree Hilt in Milford,
Yep.
Massachusetts, right off of 495.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a huge hotel, but it's a very comfortable hotel. They're in good. It's a nice hotel. They're in good shape. The staff there's wonderful to us. And we've been there now. This will be our third year. And first year we were there in 22, we had about 300 people. Last year we had just over 500, actually 501. And we hope, well, we don't hope, what we believe this year, we're probably going to sell out of badges somewhere around 600. So,
Mm.
Mm.
so yeah, we're going to be full. So,
That's great.
and
And
then,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Well,
That was it.
I was just gonna say, like, I actually, full disclosure, I actually started talking with Scott a few years ago when he was arranging this during the COVID era
Mm.
in all of our lives. And that kind of that as didn't quite come together the way that everybody, well, the whole world was thought it might.
Yeah, yeah.
And so most recently, a few months ago, I went out to the DoubleTree and met and sort of saw like everybody. I was like, there's something like 20 people at least involved in kind of on a committee, and it was I got a nice tour of the place. It was like a nice facility to be running
Mm.
in. So, um, but okay, great. So what is the primary focus, if there is a focus, or do you have like a few different
Um,
pieces to
the
it?
real focus of our convention is community. I think the real focus is a place for people to come together that we have a commonality, and that's gaming, and to feel safe and comfortable in doing that there. We primarily are a RPG and board game convention, but we have a varied bunch of other things. We have panels, and we have special events, and we have seminars, and we have a paint and take, and we have a whole lot of other things. Like this year, we're branching out. We're doing things that are a little bit off the scale for a RPG or a gaming convention. Like this year, we have yoga in the morning
Mm.
for people that want to limber up before they spend all day sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
Or for people that aren't necessarily gamers that come with gamers and looking for something else to do. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got some tarot reading this year. So this year we're adding a relaxation room for people that have maybe get away from the anxiety of having a lot of people around for a little bit and have a place to go and just kind of chill out for a little while. So
Mm-hmm.
Well,
we're really trying to make the convention a comfortable and a place for everyone. Um, that's kind of what our theme is, or our goal is, I should say, um,
I
is to make.
I actually
Good.
I like that idea. I mean, I was gonna say one of the things that I sort of I enjoy conventions in the limited amount of time, like the last 3 or 4 years that I've been going to them. But one of the things that has always been a little bit of a drag for me was just the idea of like having to take all of my stuff, having to move around. I don't really know people. I'm not really sure where to go here and there. And I really think that idea of like comfort and sort of like as a
Mm.
place to sort of go and feel relaxed and be in a space where like you can kind of like be yourself and you can kind of like basically, let your hair down and enjoy yourself, I think is like a
Yeah.
super important thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. When we talked early on, we realized we were pretty blessed to have a good community of gamers around us, people that we really loved and liked. And we know that not everyone has that opportunity.
mm,
And so we saw that as something that we can create for others by just providing a space, bringing together the right people, and really fostering the right attitude.
yeah, I think that's super valuable and super
Yeah.
helpful. And personally, like I benefited from it,
Sure.
like the idea of like being able to go to conventions and meet up with
Mhm.
people. Um, let me ask you all this. I think I know the answer to this question. I have a funny feeling I do, but I'm gonna ask it because I'm just sort of curious, and I'm hoping to sort of take us from this question I'm asking to like the connection to the convention itself. But what are your
Sure.
backgrounds in gaming? Like, I assume you're all gamers, and right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Adrian?
Yeah, we're
Absolutely.
all gamers. Yeah. I've been gaming since my brother got me into it when I was probably 15 years old, and been gaming since. Going to cons, gaming ourselves. We've run a bunch of gaming private events. It's been a really big part of our lives, not only for me personally, but for our children as well. It's just been something that's been a pervasive thing in my life for forever, as far, than I
When
remember.
when you say gaming though, Petra, are you talking about role playing? Are you talking about board games? Or are you talking about both? Or
Predominantly tabletop role-playing games. Um, I mean some board games and some card games too, but predominantly it's been tabletop role-playing.
what is it specifically about the tabletop role playing that sort of like calls to you then?
It's always been a social event for me. Um, it's been a lot of imagination, a lot of being able to take on somebody that you're not, and be that person for a little while and do stuff that you couldn't normally do in the world. And just that sense of camaraderie that you have at the table, you form memories, you form, oh, do you remember when we did this thing? That was so cool. It gave you an opportunity to build those relationships when you weren't really sure how to build relationships, right? In
Mm,
your awkward teenage years. It gave you that reason and an excuse, right,
yeah.
to be able to meet with people, and that's been kind of the same theme all along. Our entire group of gamer friends is was built intentionally, and we we share a thing that we are all very passionate about.
Mm.
It's
Hmm.
been amazing.
How about you, Dave? What originally got you into or
Uh, yeah, I started in seventh grade. There was a school program that they opened up to seniors to run it, and a friend of mine decided to run Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And I went down to the library, and he handed me a gnome figure and said, "You're an illusionist. Congratulations." And that was kind of how I started. And I was hooked ever since. I made friends through it. I explored other games. Just started with D&D because that was the thing that was popular then, and then went on to many other systems. Primarily for me, it's not only the community, like Petra said, but it also gives me a creative space to try to create, excitement and memories. I tend to like games where something happens that you didn't quite expect, either the person running the game and the players. Suddenly that collision of players ideas and GM's ideas creates something that you didn't expect, and that's the fun for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually I think that's really well said. Like I hadn't quite ever articulated that way, but yeah, like those
Mm.
memories, like I feel like they're
Mm.
memories within memories because you have the memories of being at the table, but then you have the
Yep.
memories of when so and so set fire to the tavern and everybody had to run out. And like it's
Eh,
kind of it really makes it like stand out, I
yeah.
think. And
Oh, a good friend of mine once said that he'd describe a situation that happened, and he would imagine us sitting there, and we would be in costume as the character. I
mm,
said, "That didn't happen, Donnie. You know that wasn't actually happening. That was in your head." But I'm glad it was that had made that sort of impact.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Scott, how about yourself?
All right. So I was 12. My oldest brother, who was 10 years older than me, called up from college and invited me to go play a game with him. And I'm like, oh, of course I want to go play a game with my college age brother. And he drove down, picked me up, and we drove up to the wilds of Taunton. And we pull up to this house. We walk inside, and everybody's dressed as wizards and knights. And there was a castle on the table made out of a
Mhm.
cake, and all this great stuff. And I remember I played a dwarf. I died 3 times the first night, and we killed a dragon. And that was it. I was hooked, and I've been playing ever since. I have the utmost respect for gaming. It has done so much for my life. It's such a great tool for learning. Like all our kids played, it teaches teamwork, it teaches deductive reasoning, it teaches, how to deal with stress and conflict. There's so much positive about gaming that nowadays you're starting to see companies selling gaming as
Yeah.
a tool
Mm.
to be used for education, which I think is
Yeah.
long overdue.
Yeah, I
But yeah, I've been playing forever.
I was
So
gonna say I've actually heard about companies, and I'm the details are sketchy in my head, and I wonder.
yes,
But I mean, I've heard about people who uh, are, of course, professional GMs, but they will GM for companies for like team building exercises and things
yeah,
like that. And
yeah,
so they
Yeah.
ask them
I've
to
heard
sort of
that.
make up specific
yeah. We
scenarios.
we've thought of it. I mean, you think about it this way: you have your CEO play the
Yeah.
CFO, and you have your CFO play
Right.
the production department, and
Mm-hmm.
it gives them a understanding of someone else's job that they never would normally have.
Mm.
And I think that's valuable in business, even something as simple as that. So,
Yeah.
Is there anything like as you're kind of sitting here now, and I do have an idea because I did I read your bios on the on the webpage,
Mm-hmm.
but were there any games in particular that stand out to you in particular as being like something that really was very formative for you or perhaps influential in some way as far as like your development as a gamer or even your development like as a person or like influenced you
yeah,
at work or at school or something? That
Petra?
Yeah, so I was always a player. I was never a GM, and that's where my interest laid was in doing the actual role playing until one day I sat down at a table because the theme was Dresden, and I love Dresden, and it was a fiasco game. Never heard of it, but I thought I'd give it a try, and it was love at first play. I enjoy it a lot. I It is the only game I GM, but I now GM it in three cons, and it has a waiting list every single time
Mm,
He's
because
awesome.
not
Yeah.
many people play it. It is basically tabletop improv,
Yeah.
and I tell my gamers, you're really here to entertain me, because they create the story.
mm,
Mm.
And it's just such a fun system. It doesn't take itself seriously, and everyone always has a fantastic time. But it is literally the only thing I've ever really GM'd.
mm,
Um, but I'm being pushed by both Scott and Dave at this time to start getting into some other GMing.
He's
Mm.
pretty good at it.
Um,
mm.
Yeah, which is
What
great.
but Fiasco is my love. Yep,
what is
that's
it in particular though? Because that kind of interests me, like the idea that you normally you just play, and then there's
Mhm.
one particular system. I mean, you mentioned the system, but what is it about the system, or perhaps what is it that makes you feel compelled to run it as opposed to play it? Because they do feel like different things, but what makes you want to run it instead of playing it, maybe?
So I wanna run it because I want people to know about it. I want it to be out there. And there just aren't many people who do. And I it well, one of the reasons is it doesn't have a lot of rules, and I'm not a big rules person. I don't like systems that are super mechanical. Um, and it's fun. It's a system where people get to create completely out of the box, right? And they get to just do crazy stuff without a lot of rules. And it's just a story that's created. Even people who think, "Oh my God, I can't ever do that. I
Mm,
can't create a story off the top of my head," um, end up finding that they love it, and it's
mm,
actually, a really good, fun thing to do.
yeah.
You get carried away in the moment, and the next thing you know, it's been 3, 4
Mm.
hours, and the game's over. But and you don't need much. You don't have to bring anything to the table. I bring it all. There's no real prep. I have some little playthings that I bring to the table if we have a particular theme for a con, and some table paper, some markers, and some dice that I bring, and that's pretty much it.
Mm,
That's the whole setup. And no one has to bring anything. I do it. It's easy. It's just a game system that's you can do anywhere, right, with anyone. You can do it around a campfire. You can do it, around a table. You don't have to have all the props and all the
mm,
books and all the game systems and all of that stuff that you would normally do when you come to a table. It's just very simple and easy, and again, not a lot of rules, which I'm super fond
yeah.
of. So,
No, I think we're in the same camp when it comes to that sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm very into rules light stuff because I like to sort of like orchestrate. Like I think I think I'm okay at like pointing at, okay, you try, now you try, oh, you try. And I'm
yeah.
not so great at keeping the rules in my head, and maybe if I really tried I might be, but I'm with you there. I like sort of riding the excitement and all of that. Um well David and Scott, how about yourselves? Anything in particular that stands out?
Hey, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. Well, if I'm going to pick some stuff, I have to acknowledge that I met my wife across the table playing Vampire the Masquerade. So that was certainly influential in my life. But I learned math by playing champion superheroic role playing. So
Ah.
building superheroes, there was a lot of math involved, and it was amazing how it really made me motivated to learn how to do it. But nowadays, Scott and Patrick can both attest to the fact that one of my passions is dungeon crawl classics. It's a part of the old
Ah.
school Renaissance. I've liked the mood it's created. I like the fun it's created. So it's been something that I've been going back to regularly.
Yeah, I have a friend that he swears by the game. He loves DCC.
Yeah,
He just
I
loves it.
think Joe Goodman's done a good thing with that, and I think he's achieved his goal that he puts right in his books.
Scott, how
Yeah,
about
so
yourself?
yeah, all three.
Oh,
So, mostly for years, for almost 30, 35 years, it was always fantasy. Dungeons and Dragons in its different iterations. I had my own game system all through college for about 6 years that we ran, with a group from college for years and years. And then I went to a convention, actually TotalCon,
mm,
and I sat in on a game that was horror. And I was like, I'm going to try this immersive horror game. It was called Cthulhu. I had no idea what it was. And I sat down from that game. I came away with that. I'm like, wow, that was interesting. You can actually scare people in a game.
mm,
And that's kind of fun. That's something different for me because we had done all the fantasy. We had killed all the monsters. We had
mm,
found all the treasures. We had, done all the modules. And I'm like, this is different. You can scare people. And I'm
Mhm.
like, all right, so I'm going to start working on that. So I started writing COC games, and I've been pretty good. I got about 10 or 12 of them now. And I basically run a new one every year at the con circuit. And the other thing I found, I went to Gen Con in 2013, and I sat down at a game, basically a demo. It was called Brass and Steel, a steampunk adventure. And the guys who wrote it were there. And I sat down. I had a character who was a 12-year-old kid. He had one ability. He could talk to rats. And I had the most fun in that game I had
that's
had
great.
in years. It was silly and it was campy, and we stole the money and I left a bag of chicken bones in the vault. And I was like, "This is a fun game. We're going to play this game when I go home."
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Yeah.
came back and I wrote a group of characters that become reoccurring characters in my game. You say play the same characters all the time. I have 8 or 9 of them now. It's called the Gaslight Gang, and there's this broken set of people in late 1800s England who have some cool abilities and some deficits as well.
Mm.
And I play the same team. I put them up against new thwarts every time. They've fought a kraken in the Thames. They've gone to America to capture a giant desert chicken, which is a T-Rex.
I love the
Um,
desert
and
chicken.
and people
Yeah,
come back
fun.
because it's a fun game. So those are the two things. I think if you can scare people in a game or you can make people laugh, they're two of the hardest things to do because everybody's different on what triggers them.
Mm.
So if I walk away from a table and I go, and people say, "Hey, that was creepy," or "Gee, I had a fun time with that," I think I did my job as a GM. So
Mm. Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. Like I have this sort of unofficial test that I do with one of my players. I remember one time when I was running a game and I had like a little switcheroo that I ran in the middle of the game, and one of my players, his jaw, like they say this all the time, but this actually happened. His jaw just dropped.
Mm.
And like he was
Huh.
shocked, and I was like, "That's it. That's the reaction."
you
Like
did it. Yeah,
for
yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been running for 25 years, and that's the thing that I found out. That's what I've been looking for all this time. And so like it's the
That's
jaw
awesome.
drop test. Like I try to get a jaw drop in like every game
Mm.
somehow, and if I
Yeah,
don't, I'm like really unsatisfied, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I got to get something in there that surprises
Yeah.
people or twists people." But um
that's great.
yeah, I try. I try. Doesn't always happen. Like I think every GM knows doesn't plans don't
Mm.
go the way you
Yeah.
want them to.
Sometimes you have games like that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes or often you do if you're me.
Come
Um,
on.
how about conventions themselves? So those are the games, but now we're
Yeah.
going to we're playing games, but you're going to conventions, I assume, all of this time. What kind of
No,
Absolutely.
rules?
not the whole time. Not for me.
No.
I started going to conventions. It's funny. I had not gone to any conventions for most of my early life and
Mm-hmm.
all through college. I never went to conventions. It was always private groups and college groups and things like that. And then I actually got out of it for a little while. And then what happened was I'm a union carpenter, and I started on a job, and they put me with an apprentice, and he had gone away. And I said, "Where did you go?" And he said, I went to a game convention." And I looked at him. I said, "You play Dungeons and Dragons?" I was the only person that ever thought that because most people thought he was like a gambling games. And
Oh,
we became fast
Oh.
friends. And
yeah.
that's the guy who I went to TotalCon. He brought me to TotalCon the next year, where I met Petra, I met my wife.
Oh,
So yeah, and we're still friends. So he's actually on the board. That's Vinny. He's on the
I've been
board.
I've been friends with him for a very, very,
Yeah.
very long
He
time.
knew her from
Yeah.
school. So, yeah, small
Oh,
world,
so
small world. So,
Petra, how long had you been going then? So if you must have
I've
been.
been going to Total Con for many years. I think I
uh,
was
more
16,
than me. I've been
17 when
going
I first
25.
went.
So,
Hmm.
Mm.
Long time.
Wow, 16, 17. Okay, so that
Yeah.
yeah, so that is a while. What is it that has kind of kept you going back then? What is it about the convention, like the feel or the atmosphere or the
It's the atmosphere and again it's for me it's that sense of community,
yeah.
right? So I like the smaller conventions. I like the conventions that I mean, I've been going to Total Con for so long. I always joke that every year it feels like I'm walking into Cheers and I'm Norm, you
Right.
know. It's
does feel
just
like that.
that group of people that you've seen year after year after year after year. I mean, a lot of them I only ever see once a year
Mm,
when I
Mm.
go to that con. And the ability to play new games without any commitment. You don't have to buy the system. You don't have to, you could just say, "Hey, that one looks interesting. Let me do that." Um, and the energy, right? You walk into a convention, there's an energy about the people that game and the people that go there, and you have all these people in one space who love to do the thing that you love to do.
Mm.
Is just great. It's a really great feeling. And it just feels so inclusive, right?
mm,
That that all of these people here find joy in the same thing that you do.
mm, mm,
And that's what we're looking for in Rising Phoenix too, that sense of community. Like I've been going to Total Con for 25 years and Adrian longer. And there is that when I walk in, I see people that I only see that one time a year. And it's just like it was yesterday. Like we were talking
Mm.
last week, and there's no it doesn't really matter. The nice thing about gaming to me, the rest of your life really doesn't need to matter. Like where you are religiously, politically, whether you have kids or not kids, or your relationship status, your identity, none of that matters. The thing is we have in common is we all love to game,
mm,
and that's
Mm.
all that we need to have in common to have fun and respect each other. So,
mm,
and that's kind of like how I look at it. So that was the other reason when we started Rising Phoenix. It was very important to us that we be welcoming to everyone. So
and David, you said you met your wife at a vampire game, but that's not at a convention, or was that?
That wasn't at a convention. It was at a
Oh,
friend's house. I'd been
oh,
playing. Yeah, yeah. It was at a. Yeah, it wasn't. Certainly since then we had gone to many conventions, but that just happened to be where we met. And of course, her mother told her that she'd never meet anybody going to those crazy games that she
never,
never.
never,
So I
not
tell her to this
possible.
day that she married me just to make her mother wrong. But either way, it works.
um,
But
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was anticipating you were going to ask which conventions I've gone to. And yeah, I've gone
Yeah.
to a bunch. I started with the Newburyport War Gamers Association back in like 80s, which was the local game convention that was pulled together by the Hobby Store, which is where I would regularly go to play Dungeons and Dragons because there was until we I had my own game space, that's the only place we could play.
Mm.
But then very nicely, my father helped me set up the attic, and next thing I know, I had a game room up there.
Oh,
And then
that's
he
so
couldn't.
cool.
Yeah, I give him a lot of credit. He hoisted a pool table up 2 floors outside the house to get it in through the giant window in the
Outside the house,
in.
like one of those crane things that you see
He
like in
basically
movies.
set up a winch,
A
a
winch.
pulley,
Yeah.
a winch outside. He was also a carpenter, so he would look for solutions like that. But that was the only way to get the pool table from the basement up to the attic, where we could use it as a giant game table. And he wanted to get rid of it anyways, so it worked out for him. Just took a bit of hoisting. But once we got it up there, we had a space, and then my friends would march over and we'd play Car Wars,
Oh
Champions,
yeah, Steve
Dungeons and
Jackson games. Yeah.
Dragons. Yeah, because we had a table to do it on, and my mother would say, "At least I know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
You're not out in the streets getting yourself in trouble. Instead, you guys are up there yelling about, flamethrower to the face or
Right.
whatever." Yeah,
Worshiping the
but
devil and things like that.
we're
You know,
yeah.
things
yeah,
Thankfully,
young
they
people
never
did in
fell
the late.
victim to that nonsense.
Right. Um.
Yeah.
So, from sort of listening to the three of you now, I mean, I get the impression, and I feel like you've been part of the scene, the convention scene here in Mass for a good amount of time, which is something that's brand new to me because I
Yeah.
like I said, I've just been going. Do you feel that like have conventions have they changed in the
Mm.
last whatever since like when you started? Are they different now than
Oh
they used
yeah,
to be, or are they
yeah.
basically the
Yeah.
same, or is like how do you feel
That's
about
a
that?
good question.
Yeah,
I
it's an
think they
interesting
have
question.
changed.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave. You go say something.
No, it's like it does to me. It does vary depending on the community that's building the convention. They are they have a personal stamp on them, unless it's a big giant one like Gen Con.
Mm,
TotalCon has a different flavor than than any of the cons up in Maine that I've been to, or any of the cons in New Hampshire. Some are better run than others because that's what people like to do. They like to think those things through and create an environment that's welcoming. Whereas some just rent a hotel and say, "Come play games and let's hope it all works out all right."
mm,
And so I have seen differences, but as far as the flavor of cons, I haven't run into a unified difference between one con and another. It's more unique because each con does have a personal stamp on it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dave.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're all doing the same thing. There's a
Yeah.
lot of great cons in New England.
mm,
I can think off the top of my head a dozen around us at
Yeah.
different times of the year, and they all good for different reasons. Some of them, are smaller than others. Some are bigger than others.
Hmm.
Like I personally try to stay away from the big cons.
mm.
I find it too impersonal. Like I've gone to Gen Con, I've gone to Gary Con. Gary Con was awesome because you meet all the old school gamers, all the old school guys that were there in the beginning.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but there's a size thing, like you go to Gen Con, I always tell everybody, yeah, you go to Gen Con if you're a gamer, go see it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but
Experience it once. Yeah.
Yeah.
don't go expecting all the gaming to be great because you have no idea who you're sitting down with,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
and some of this, I'll be honest, if they have, 5,000 games, your chances
Yeah.
of finding the perfect game are slim. But like
Yeah.
I found Brass and Steel, and I was like, wow, this is an awesome game. I had a blast.
Hmm.
So it does happen. You could click on something and be like, this is the perfect thing I wanted to do. You
Right.
could also get in a game and be like, oh man, why did I get in this game? This is not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I find that at the smaller cons, you have more of a chance to get in with because there's less choices, first of all. And then there's the chance that, like, all right, so you probably know somebody. You'd be like, oh, I know that guy, or that guy, somebody told me that guy's a good GM. So you have that kind of thing you can ask around, and people will tell you, hey, you like that kind of game, go see this person. You know, um, there is GMs are weird. They're kind of like I hate to say it, but like cheesy rock stars because they do get followings.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I
Sure.
have people that
Yeah.
follow me, and I don't know why,
Hmm.
but I have people that show up in my Brass and Steel game like every year. Even my COC games, they always come to my new game, like
Right.
Yeah.
which is great, and it makes you feel really good. I had a guy from Canada who came. I met at Necromonicon because I run games at Necromonicon, and he's like, I came back because of your game. I'm like,
Mm.
that's impressive
I
to
know.
me. Like
That's
you
like
came
a
all the way back from Canada to play in my
Yeah.
next game. That made
Yeah.
me feel really good. It's like I'm doing my
Hmm.
job.
I f-
So
I feel like games are a really good way to get small bits of validation for so personally, me,
Yeah.
I respond, I think a lot of people do, but I think I've got some talents in different things. And to do some of these different things that I want to do, it's almost like I need like $1 million so they can go out there and be done all this
yeah, we
like
understand that
but
completely.
but when I run a game, I'm running a game for like 4 or 5 people. And when 4 or 5 people decide I like that game enough that I'm going to come back to Matt's game in 2 weeks, it's like a boost for me that helps me
Pat on
Yeah.
the back.
it
Yeah,
helps me take one more step toward that $1 million thing that I want to
Hmm.
do. Like
yeah.
I bank some creativity into that million
It's
dollar thing, and
value. It
after it,
creates value in
yeah,
yourself. Yeah,
it
Yeah.
feels
yeah.
like it's a confidence boost, even though
Of course it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you're honest to yourself, it's not hard to figure out that
And
people
like
enjoyed your game.
yeah.
I have the utmost respect for GMs. These guys and girls go out and they spend a huge amount of time. I know how much time I spend writing games. It's people that spend 5 or 10 times the time I spent writing a game. And then they bring this game before a bunch of people that they don't know, and they're like, "Hey, here's my offering. I hope you like it." And
Hmm.
that's impressive when you think about it. That you do this, that these folks do this all the time. At every convention, there's guys and girls that say, "I just want to run games. I don't want to play. I want to just
Yeah.
keep giving out
Right.
what my thing." And there's some amazing
Well,
stories that are generated at conventions.
it kind of
So.
reminds me of what Petra was saying earlier about running the one game that one game. Like the way that you were describing it, I was going to say it, but I didn't want to interrupt, but I was going to say like it sounds to me like in a way you enjoy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like you enjoyed being this person that was like a spark that helped other people in like have fun and enjoy themselves. And like that when you said that, it kind of resonated with me because I thought, "Oh, I can't maybe necessarily make a multi-million dollar movie, but I can make a mini movie for 4 or 5 people every 2 weeks, and there's no special effects. Is there's the budget is
Yeah.
the sky's the limit, and I can do any crazy
Hmm.
thing I want, and I can have any sort of plot twists I want, and any sort of MCU, my own version of it I want." I don't know. Is it fair to say that's kind of what you were describing, Petra, or am I?
It's the love of having people enjoy themselves, right? They laugh, they're creative, and to be able to, I don't know, to be able to allow them the space to do it in, right? To give the permission to say, you know what, this might not be something you've ever done before,
Mm,
but I'm gonna create a space for you that's gonna allow you to do this
So
and
I
really enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
For me, that's just it makes me happy, right?
mm.
It feeds me.
And
So
I
that.
gotta say something. Can I say something?
Oh, is Scott
So
going to say
Paige,
something?
Paige,
I didn't know that Scott would want to say something.
oh stop. Petra is the spot.
I'm just
No,
kidding.
Petra is the spot because the reason why Rising Phoenix is a thing is not really because of me. She is my muse when it comes to gaming. And without her, none of this would ever have happened because I never would have been the person I am now.
Mm.
So it really
Mm.
is her that's the spot.
Then what was the spark? Because this is good. This leads into my next question. What was the spark
Because she,
that
yeah,
Petra contributed that
she
got you to
believed in me.
start the convention? You're making a leap from playing
Yeah.
private personal games at home and maybe with friends and maybe slightly
Well,
smaller games, but
we were running events. We had a business where we ran events all over New England.
oh,
Not that we
okay.
made any money, but it was Dark Phoenix Events was ours for 8 years. But um, she was the reason. When I say she is the spot, she gave me the belief in me
Hmm.
that we could do it, that we could do anything we wanted to do, really.
Mm.
And otherwise, I never would have had that ability. So I
Yeah.
credit her with it. So
What
Yeah.
why did you decide to take it to the next level then? Because it's one thing to be doing. I don't know what the size of the events you're talking about, but I would imagine this is bigger, 300
there
people.
you go. Yeah, the biggest event we did privately was
oh, let
probably
me let me let me answer this,
go ahead.
honey.
Yeah,
Let me answer this. So Scott is very much the person who um loves to get people together to do things, and he does not do anything in a small way.
Hmm.
It's just not how
Mm.
it works. And we were running murder mystery events, we were running a house con, and that house con just started to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we also love to go camping, so we're at the campground one day, and I said, "Hey, well, why don't we run a convention in a campground?" And we started doing that, and then that started getting bigger and bigger and
Mm.
bigger and bigger, up to I think 70 people or something. And
it's
um
71
and
years.
then
So
Mm.
and then eventually, and of course, our friends weren't helping. Well, I should say not helping. They were helping him. Oh, why don't we just run a con? Why don't we do a con? And I'm like, well, why don't we do like, a day con? Why don't
Right. Something a little
we
bit
do,
more reserved
Yeah,
just
and
take it
controlled.
one step at a time,
it's
and
the
he's
natural
like,
extension, Petra. It's the natural next
and then he
step.
was like, well, why don't we do? He's like, no, I want to do a full weekend con.
Mm.
And
If you're gonna put the time in,
I said, well,
might as well make it
okay,
count.
let's, if you can get a bunch of people to do it, because most of these events was pretty much me and Scott, right? We were the ones
Mm.
running these events. And it was a lot of work. And I had a little bit of an inkling of what it meant to run a con. I was doing a lot of work for Total Con. I'm very
Me
good
too.
friends with
Yeah.
the people who run
Yeah.
Total Con. So I wanted to get an idea of what that looked like. So
And they
I
told us not
I
to.
got involved,
Oh, good.
with Total Con, and I said to Scott, I said, well, okay, if we're gonna do this, we're not doing it alone. We're gonna do it with a group of people, um, as an equal shared load, right? Equal shared joy and equal shared work.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how this was. And then Scott was like, "Okay, we want to do this thing," and 14 of our friends raised their hands and said, "Yeah, we want to do it too."
Mm.
So that's kind of how it was born.
It's interesting the way that it snowballs, right? Like I have
Yeah.
so many things in my life that started out like this little acorn and then become
Yeah.
mighty oak a lot quicker than
And
I had originally
yeah,
anticipated.
you
Oh, it
know,
does. Yeah.
I look back and go, who would have thought, right? Who would have thought we'd have a convention? It's it's like a pipe dream come true. It really is.
Yeah.
So
So you go
yeah.
Hmm.
you go from campground to the DoubleTree.
Yeah.
How did you choose a venue? How did that kind of come
Uh,
about?
Mm.
we
Well, a
did
lot
a
of
lot
it.
of
Yeah.
research.
Yeah.
Dave's,
Research.
uh,
We had
Dave's
to.
the
Yeah.
hotel guy. Yeah.
We had to think about location. Had to be accessible to the population of people we're going to attract. It couldn't be tucked in some niche in the woods that people had to trek to. It had to have amenities near it. We also had to think about the other conventions that are around us. We don't want to be just, in the shadow of another
Right.
convention, either on that date or even just right next to them, so that people would say, well, if I can't go to both, then I won't go to either, or something like that. We didn't
Yeah.
want to be. We wanted to be our own distinctive entity, build our own brand. But at the same time, we had to have what people needed. It had to be good enough function space, enough rooms, and the hotel had to be cooperative. We work hard with the hotel. All of us do. I have the job of hotel liaison, but all of us work with them,
Mm.
and they have to accommodate something that they've probably never seen before. Most hotels that I've ever been working with have never seen a convention like this. We're a different animal. They hear
Mm.
convention, they think of a bunch of business dudes
Right.
listening to seminars and having cocktails. That's what they think of.
Right. What
And this, yeah, go ahead,
And
sorry.
it's
what
different for, go ahead.
well, I was just
Yeah.
gonna ask, like, what are some of the things? Because I guess you're going, I mean, everybody's familiar. It sounds like we're all familiar with what a con maybe should be, but maybe not so
Mm.
familiar with the behind the scenes stuff. Like, so David, when you're going, like, did you like reject other places saying that's not quite right, or this isn't quite right, or I can't get a good deal, or
Well, as a board, we lined up all the pros and cons, and then we talked them over, and then we voted, and we decided which one that made sense for us now. We also had to consider how big do we want to be year one, and how big do we want to be year three. Where are we going? And we wanted to make sure we had room to grow, but not so much room that it would be unmanageable. It was a balancing act. We had to worry about money. We didn't know how much money we could bring in. Hotel rental costs plenty of money, and we had only so much seed money
Yeah.
to start with. We had to be cautious about it.
Your
We
first
didn't
year
want to
is like a
get,
total
yeah.
crapshoot.
Oh, absolutely. And when
You
COVID
know, it
crashed
really was
down, we
like,
were,
let's see what
yeah,
happens, you know?
yeah, yeah,
And
and
don't forget, we missed our first year. COVID hit right before we were supposed to have our first convention. We had to
yeah.
cancel. We had to pay paid all our attendees and all our vendors back their money.
Mm-hmm.
And, we took a whack. And
Yeah.
then we took a year off because we're like, do we want to do this? Now we're behind
Yeah.
the eight ball. It costs us a lot of money. We have less
Yeah.
money to start, but we got back together. We said, all right, we're going to try again. We're going to try one more time and see what happens. And that
Mhm.
was 2022. And we had 300 people, which was great for our
Yeah.
first year. We had
It
300
was
people show
touching.
up. We had fun. And the funniest thing was we were waiting all the whole convention. We were waiting for something to go wrong. We got to the end of it, like, wow, nothing went
Wow.
wrong.
Right.
So, oh,
We all made it.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting the way that what's funny that you say that you all kind of face this was the odd thing was when I was talking to you, Scott, I had actually been when I originally started talking to you, like
yeah,
during a
yeah,
little bit
back
before
in like
COVID.
2019 or
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
I had been
Mhm.
planning doing a live play, actual play in a theater in
Mm.
Somerville or Cambridge, and I was looking at different venues for that, and they were very excited. They're like, "Oh, no one's ever done anything like this before at our theater or in this area, or they've done it in Boston, but not in Cambridge, not in Somerville. We want to do this." And then COVID hit, and suddenly everything just got like sidelined. Like it was just
Gone
it was just
over.
kind of
Yeah.
impossible for the first like six
Oh
months
yeah.
because nobody knew how to
Yeah.
do anything or had
Yeah.
any
Nobody
idea,
wanted to go
no
outside.
protocols. Yeah,
Yeah.
So, you know,
yeah.
and even
Yeah.
me, I'm compromised. I have asthma.
Mm,
I was, and Petra's a nurse. So she was going out, helping people out, helping the homeless as a nurse. And she'd come home and I had a plastic sheet hanging and I could give her a hug through the plastic sheet, but
right.
for months, we couldn't even touch. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Mm.
hard. It was a hard time. So,
Yeah.
So what is it like then? I'm not even sure what to ask at this point because suddenly you're just like, okay, we we have a hotel, we have like did
Mm.
you sit down and come up with some sort of a plan
oh,
and say we're going to shoot for
oh, yeah.
200 people, we're going to shoot for 100, we're going to shoot
Well,
for this is our how we
the
can stay in the
first year
black?
we had like what we needed to break even,
Yeah.
um, kind of, because it's all new. So, it was an iffy thing. But we went up to the hotel. We went many times, me and Dave and some of the other people. I measured the entire hotel with a tape measure. We laid all the tables out. We laid everything we
Yeah.
could do to make it so that there wasn't any issues. Like we
Yeah.
really, really, really worked hard before the con, so that when we got to the con, it wasn't going to be like, all right, where's that going to go? Or we
Scott
had
knows their
everything laid out.
inventory better than they do, to be honest. They
Yeah,
asked
I
me
know
for
how
the
many tables
maps.
the hotel has and chairs more than they do. I do. Um, but that's my job. I set the floors. So I put the games in place. I need to know every nook and cranny I can put a table, and I
Mm.
need to know spacing and all that. So I actually measured the whole hotel because the maps when you go to a hotel and they show you the map, it really
Oh.
doesn't look anything like that. So
Mm, right,
so
like
I
the
meed the whole
scale and all
hotel.
that is all
Yeah,
off,
Yeah,
right?
it's like a
and I
child
have
drew it from
yeah,
another child telling
yeah,
him
with a
about it.
Right.
crayon.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
but now I gave them maps, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is our hotel." So,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, there was a lot of work behind the scenes. Like we had
Yeah.
meeting after meeting after meeting. All right, so what are we going to do about COVID? We actually have a COVID policy where everybody had to be um,
Yeah. Vaccinated and
have their
masked.
vaccine, and we had to track that, and it
Yeah.
was very involved the first couple of years.
Food.
Um, food, yeah, what do we do about
Electronics.
food?
How are we going to have wireless, or how are we going to
Yeah,
do panels to have audio visual in the panel
yeah.
room? All those things had to be
Everything
talked
was
about.
like it was almost like I equate it to like trying to launch a rocket. Like the triple byte levels of what if this goes wrong, we have
Redundancy.
this. If this goes
Yeah.
wrong, we have that.
Yeah. It's
Um,
like trying to
and
hold a
it but
wedding of 300 people on a rocket launch. That's pretty much what it comes
Oh,
to.
pretty easy.
pretty
Dancing
much.
on
So
the head of a pin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that.
but it
we
but it
so
worked
we
because
did
we all
we
worked
did
hard.
have we did have an advantage in the sense of we so we were been going to TotalCon for many years, and we started having a group that we call Dark Phoenix, and we had a lot of GMs
Mm.
that would play under our banner, and TotalCon was very supportive. They gave us a room
They were awesome.
to
Yeah,
run our
Yeah.
games in. And so,
they still are.
Scott had to organize all those. games and people and slots and who's doing what and when, and do we have enough to fill the tables, um
And I've
and
been doing that for years.
we
Yeah.
got a name. Dark
Hmm.
Yeah.
Phoenix became known as
Yeah.
as an entity, right? As its own name, and it had a really good reputation. And so when we decided to branch out into a convention,
Mm.
we were able to piggyback on that name because people already knew it. People in the gaming
Hmm.
community in this area already knew that name,
Yeah.
and they were comfortable with it. And TotalCon, I give them a lot of kudos. They helped
Oh,
advertise us. They helped
Oh
push
yeah.
us,
we
and
borrowed
they've
their
been
game
nothing.
library,
Yeah.
Yep,
because we don't
they've
have the
been
twenty
nothing but
thousand dollars
super
plywood.
supportive.
Hmm.
And it's another one of the reasons why, it's a community. It's not a competition, right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
not like whose gaming convention's better,
No,
right?
we're not Pepsi and
It's a
Coke.
we're just different. We're
right.
just different. That's all.
It's who, everyone loves the game and wants to see it be out
Yeah.
there, and have other people
Yeah.
do it. So, we had a lot of experience, Scott and I, in organizing games, and we're able to bring that to the convention and say,
Hmm.
okay, we're going to do this. It's going to be a much larger scale. And there are some other things that we need to think about, but we had a good base.
Mm.
And the
We did have a
skills
good
Hmm.
that
base.
people do in their regular lives, they were able to bring to the convention as well, right? So
Right.
it was just a kind of a perfect storm of good
Yeah.
things.
Having a diverse board has been very good for us. We get people from the
Yeah.
business world, we have people from the professional world. I'm a carpenter. I build things. We build all kinds of things for the convention. So that everyone has a skill that they're able to help in their way and add to the pile of stuff of I say the tools in our box,
Mm.
really, because
Hmm.
that's from my world. Everything is a tool in your box. So we had a great we have a great group of people that are very smart. But I know that in the past there have been some game conventions that have kind of floundered because they've all been just gamers and they don't really have anything else. The
Mm.
business end.
Right.
We
Yeah.
luck out that even though I have retail experience from years ago. I was an operations manager, but we have a lot of people that are in business. So, and we have financial people, and so that's all played into the fact of one of the reasons I think so far we've been successful. So,
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this then. So you talked kind of about all of the stuff that you're doing in the background, but like what are the pieces of the convention? When I think of a
Mm.
convention, I think of a couple things. I basically think of gaming and I think of panels. But
Yeah.
my impression is that there are other things going on. Can you tell us a
Hmm.
little bit about the gaming that you run, the panels that you run, and the other things that you're running as
sure.
as well?
Um, who wants to start? Dave, you want to
Well,
start with
yeah.
something other than panels or gaming?
Sure. Well, we make a big effort to recruit in the best vendors that we can find and the most diverse group of vendors. And we're very blessed to have to have a community of vendors that are very, they know some of them know each other. They've been to other conventions together. They sell cool stuff, and they're really artists. A lot of them are artists that are really demonstrating their wares. They might sell figurines, they might sell clothes, they might sell dice bags, they might sell decals, but there are a bunch of people and they add to the environment, they add to the fun. We have a whole vendors row right in the main area where people can shop, and it creates an additional fun level of fun that
Mm,
if you're not in a game, you can go talk to the vendors. They're like-minded people just like you, and they're making cool creative stuff, and it might be something that you want to bring home. We have a board game library that Scott's mentioned that we work with TotalCon to take advantage of some of their collection, and we're building our own collection. And it's a nice feature so that people can come in, and even if they don't have a game planned at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they can get 4 friends together around a table, borrow a game from the library for nothing that comes with their membership price to get into the convention,
mm,
and they just sit down and they play the board game, and and they could try something that they wouldn't think to buy themselves because they don't know it and they don't want to spend $75 on a game and find out they don't like it. But here at our convention, they can take the time and just try it out, and no risk to them.
Mm.
We have special events, like you mentioned, panels. We also we run kids events. Both were first year we ran some nice outdoor kids events just to keep the kids occupied, laser tag and some medieval themed beanbag toss type games. And we also try to bring in kids who might not have had the opportunity to play D&D to make sure that to introduce the idea to them. We got lucky that last year we had a nice community of a group of school kids that came in with their teacher,
Mm.
and we put together a couple of plans for a couple of
But
events for them.
I'd like to
Those are
just
some of the
touch
things.
on that for a minute.
Please.
So we have a sponsorship program that we school in New Bedford. Kids that normally wouldn't be able to come to a convention.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought them in. We had somebody sponsor them. They came in for the day. They got to play some games. They got some cool swag for their school club. They all got a T-shirt. And, it was, I get a little verklempt. It was so
Mm,
cool to see
yeah.
these
Yeah.
kids and their reaction. I got a letter in the mail from them at the end of it, and I still have it. It was very
Mm-hmm.
touching. And this year, we've got even more kids we're bringing in. We firmly believe, all of us, that the future of gaming is the children. I'm 58. Yeah, if I get another 20 years doing this, great. I don't know if I will. But those kids that are like 15 and 16, they've got a whole lifetime ahead of them that they
Mm.
can be gaming and showing other people how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we really believe that that's the future of gaming, is to bring them in as many as we can. So this program that we started last year, we're really trying to develop it and coming up with new ways to bring people in. And so last year we got some nice sponsors, and this year we have some more sponsors that have thrown up some money in so we can afford to bring these kids in. And we really appreciate that. And we're hoping that maybe next year the program goes a little more, not national, but more open that anyone can be like, hey, I want to sponsor someone, and so we can
Mm,
bring a bunch more kids in. Maybe we can have a whole
yeah.
kids section next year.
Mm.
That would be awesome. So, um,
See,
but yeah.
he doesn't think small. He has to think big. But I
No, I
mean,
don't.
Well.
we have we also have the Catan tournament,
Yep.
which we didn't
Mm-hmm.
say anything about, which is
One
also
of
a big event.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott. You
we're
can
one of
explain
only
about it.
four conventions in New England that have the Catan National Qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
And if you
Oh.
win a ticket, you win a ticket at ours, you get a free ticket. I believe it's at Origins. I'm not positive about that, but the next place for the national
The
qualifier.
next
This is
level.
qualifier for the yeah. And then if you win that one, I think you actually get to go overseas to Europe and play in the grand tournament, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
there's only four
Yeah.
other conventions in New England that have a Catan qualifier. We're very, very proud to be one of those conventions.
I just thought
So,
of the professional sword troop that we had last year come in and do
yeah,
a demonstration and explain the history of swords in various cultures. It was
that was
quite a
amazing.
good event. It was a fun
I
event.
even I learned stuff, and I've
Yeah,
been, I was in Nero for years.
That
So,
actually
sure.
sounds really cool. Petra, I'm sorry, were you going to say something there?
Well, I just wanted to point out one of the other things that's super important to all of us on the board, and something that we've been trying to bring forward into the community as well, is the idea of inclusion and diversity. That's been a huge aspect for us as well. We want everyone to feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
in our convention, regardless, and we try to make that presence known. We have panels that specifically speak to diversity. We have had women in gaming panels that have been extremely popular, and this year we're trying to open that door even more. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll let either Dave or Scott touch on those
Well, I was going to
subjects.
Yeah, I was going to
I
ask a
can talk
little
a little bit.
bit of a
Yep.
follow-up on that and just sort of say like this is kind of related to something I was about to sort of get into is it's one thing of course to run your own sort of private games. You're inviting over friends or family or whatever and you kind of know what to expect and all of that. Um what what is it like running a convention where there's a big, like a huge element of the unexpected and making sure, as you say, that people feel comfortable and included and safe and feel like they can like be themselves and all of that. Would anyone like
Mhm.
to sort of touch upon that or?
Hmm. Interesting question. It's a
Patriot,
balancing act.
maybe? Respect and safety? You're on respect and safety?
I mean, I think it's having like we have the gamers, the Boston gamers. They are right there at the front when they come in the door. Um, we games for people who um have that are trans friendly, that are gay friendly, um, where we have a policy of non-tolerance, right? So if you're not going to accept people who are different from you, we do not tolerate that behavior, right? So, and
Hmm.
that's in our policy, that's in our write-ups. So we try to make that absolutely clear up front that this is who we are, and these are our expectations. Um, and I mean, and that goes to, the neurodivergent world. It
Mm,
goes to, women sitting at the table. I mean, women have been sitting at the table for a long time, but again, it's been our role within that culture, being able to be GMs, being able to be recognized as equal partners of the gaming table,
Hmm.
um, things like that. And of course the LGBTQIA plus community, very important to us. Um, because I think that a lot of people don't game at conventions because they're not sure of their welcome,
mm,
right? So they won't go because they don't know what it's going to be like for them.
right.
Yeah,
And we
Yeah,
just want them to know that it's okay. We support you.
sure.
And we're here. Everyone has a right to game.
Totally.
Everybody
It
has a
can
right
be
to game.
scary to go to a hotel that you've never been to with
Mm,
300 people that maybe you've never met, maybe one friend that you talked into coming with you, and hope that you don't have a terrible time. Our goal and our role is to pave the way, make it as easy as possible for them to have a good time, and make sure that everyone's respectful. And that's really what we constantly focus on as we
yeah.
plan for each convention.
So let me just throw this out. Like we're panels. So we have a panel this year called How to Be an Ally. Like me, I'm an old white guy. I'm the poster child for the old stuff that used to happen at D&D tables. Um, but I'll be honest, I firmly believe that there is everyone's welcome at the table, and I will
Mhm.
fight for that. So we have the how to be an ally because I don't know. Like say we've had people say, "Hey, I want to run a game about LGBTQ, or I want to run a game where there's someone's gay in the game, and but I'm not." Well, then you shouldn't because that's what we're getting from the people who are telling us you shouldn't do that because you don't know what it's like, and that's
Mm.
I didn't know that. Nobody ever told me that. So we're having a game of how do I be an ally? How do I run games
mm,
effectively? How do I support correctly? And how do I just show that I care?
mm,
And
Mm.
I think that's important for people because I don't know. I know a lot more now because I've been trying to learn, but I'm far from perfect. Um, but I do believe that there's a way for us all to have commonality.
mm.
So I really do. So
It's something like I can say candidly to the viewers. I've been lucky enough to sort of be on a little bit on the inside. I've come to one of Rising Phoenix's meetings, and I've talked to Scott a few times. And one thing that I've been impressed with, just what I've seen and who I've talked to, is genuinely how much like the inclusivity aspect is woven into everything. Like it sort of touches just about everything that they've been doing in one way, shape, or form.
Mm.
And that was something that I thought that I think is really great. And I mean, it kind of links back to what I was saying before about like first moving to to mass and not having any friends and wanting to meet up with people and at friendships and acquaintanceships and even strangers that you meet and all of that. It's all based on the way that we interact and talk and friendships and I like this aspect and I like I guess the teacher in me likes that too because I'm always like trying to instill that in my kids. Um, but I can just say for those of you watching at home, like it's something that genuinely impressed me as I've been kind of witness behind the scenes to
Thank you.
some various
Yeah,
aspects
thanks.
that can.
No, thank you. I'm glad it comes
It means
through.
a,
Yeah.
it means
Yeah,
a
it
lot
does.
to us.
Yeah,
It really
it
does.
really did. Like I could just tell, like because I'm just sitting there and I'm watching, and yeah, I can
Yeah.
just hear it, and I saw it. But it's now you're throwing the games all together and you got like games running for like 3 days
Mm.
and all this stuff and there's so many plates in the air. Like how many games do you
We have
expect
What's the number?
306 games this year.
over
Events.
so like
They're not all games, but
a hundred and
most
two
more
per
on
day?
Saturday than any other day
Yeah.
because Sunday's a short day.
Right.
But Friday and
Yeah.
Saturday are both, 3 sessions basically of a 4-hour game, or 6 sessions of a 2-hour game. But Sunday's a shorter day because we end at 5. But yeah, we
Right.
have Saturday's the big day. It's big day at most conventions. Saturday's the big day. Friday night is busy too. Friday morning's always slow. This year we have what I call a false start or a cold start on Thursday night because we had people show up last year on Thursday night to play. So I said, look, I'm going to open up game. You can put a game in, but we can't guarantee you can have players. But at least you could tell
Yeah.
people, hey, I'm going to be here running a game on Thursday night. So we have I think we have 9 raw RPGs on Thursday night. We have 2 board games and a card game for like up to
Mm-hmm.
30. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. But at least the people that did come last time and like say, well, I didn't get any players. At least now the people know there's a game and they can like,
Right.
hey, I'm local. I'll just drive out and go play that game, and then tomorrow
Sure.
morning I'll get my badge.
Or
Yeah.
check into the
So
hotel a little early. The hotel likes an
yeah,
extra night of stay, and
Mm.
yeah.
and we have the space there. We already have the
Right.
tables, so why
If
not
we
put them to
stop,
some use?
we get there at noon on Thursday. It takes us all day to set up.
Yeah.
We have a lot of props. That's the other thing we haven't really talked about. We have a huge amount of props. We actually
Mm-hmm.
we want you to feel when you walk in the door like it's like you're at a gaming convention and you're not at a hotel with there's other stuff going on. You're at a
Mm-hmm.
gaming convention because you know it. Like when you walk in the doors, you'll know.
Mm.
We have big towers and we have flags and we hang pennants from the ceiling, and it looks our theme is medieval.
Yeah.
I made I have 750 pounds of dice. And I say that because I made concrete blocks that look like die sixes that hold up our signage. And
Oh my
each one weighs
gosh.
about 70 pounds, and there's 10 of
Yeah.
them. So,
Have to wheel them in hand trucks. Believe me, if
so I
Scott
made,
could
yeah,
hire a dragon to come to the hotel and stand in
I
front of it
would,
all
I
weekend, he
would.
would.
Yes, a matter of fact, it's funny. I saw this, 6-foot animatronic dragon. I'm like, I want that, but I don't have the money for it yet. So,
Maybe next
yeah,
year.
maybe
Mm.
next year. Maybe
Don't
that's a
don't
definite
encourage him. We don't
possibility.
have a place to put it.
Oh, we do. We always do.
They'll find one.
Uh-huh.
You could live
I
under it.
will. Yeah. I'll
Uh,
put it on my
And we
roof.
had a very good art director and very involved in getting our props set up
Yeah.
and
mhm.
We have
making
a
us
theme. He's
look
very
a
good at
certain way.
that. Yeah, we've been lucky in the
Yeah.
skills that we have from the folks that are involved. We said we wanted a theme, and we came up with this theme, and he's like, all right, we're gonna do this and this and this. And he was right
Mhm.
on the mark
Mm.
because the people walk in and they go, wow,
Mm.
Yeah.
this
Love it.
is
Yeah.
cool.
We
It's
Yeah.
different.
turn
It's something
Doubletree into
different.
something that feels
Yeah.
fantastical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So,
so if you, my head is still stuck on the 300 something games thing. I'm like thinking in my
Sure.
head like
okay.
what it's what it's like to like organize all of that and get that.
So
Is that
the nice
that's
thing
not
is,
300
no,
GMs though. That's like
no, we have about 82 GMs this year.
they run a total of about 300
A
games.
total of and some of those are
Okay.
events. So there's 20 of those are panels, and we have this other thing called critical chats.
Hmm.
Have you familiar with the German coffee Klaus?
Uh,
Clutch.
It's basically like a book club kind of thing.
hmm
Is it Klaus? How do you
No,
say it, Petra? You're
clutch.
German.
It's coffee clutch. It's just a
Coffee
coffee
clutch.
clutch. It's fine.
I say club. I'm sorry. But anyways, it came from that, which was actually suggested by one of our vendors. He's like,
Mhm.
you can have a group of people sitting around a table, and maybe you could, explain how to build something or this and that as a vendor. I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
kind of cool. What could we do with that? So what we did was we have a bunch of people sit around the table over coffee and Danish or coffee and cookies, and they talk about a subject that the person who's leading it is familiar with. So we've
And
had
it's
like the
small.
main,
It's small.
Mhm.
and it's
It's
small,
only
it's
like
just five people.
six.
So it's very
Yeah.
intimate. It's you get nitty gritty with stuff. I did one last year on location, writing games for locations for games, and this year I'm doing how to run events for your friends that are more than like one table.
Mhm.
So I have a
Mhm.
lot of experience with running weird events, and so I'm gonna do a lot. So maybe somebody wants to have a birthday party and have 40 of their closest friends.
Mhm.
I can give them some hints. So,
Mhm.
Mm.
um,
So if you're
but we have,
oh,
no, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, so if you've got all of these things, these different events and different activities and panels and all of
Yeah.
that going on, how is it that um how is it that the people that are sort of guiding them, whether it be a GM or whether it be, I guess, the panelists or whatever, is there a way that you prepare them for what they're about to do? Is there a rigorous training program that you put them
No,
through, like a
No.
we
2 week
have
boot
a,
camp, or
that
Mhm.
would be awesome. I would love to be able to do that.
that'd be
But
good.
no, we have we do a GM Zoom. Matter
Mm,
of fact, it's coming up on Monday.
mm,
Where if you're
Yeah.
going to be a game master of any kind or run a panel or anything like that, you're invited to come, and we talk about, the rules that we have for game masters, and some hints, what we kind of expect from our game masters.
mm,
And we talk about, cool ways that they can um, interact with the convention. So we have this program where we have a whole bunch of swag, and they can trade their time for I call them GPs, Golden Phoenixes. They're little cards, but they each one's worth about $5, and they can go to our. We have a treasure room, our hoard, and they can go trade for stuff. And we have some
mm,
really
Mm.
good stuff.
mm,
Yeah,
So,
we do.
um,
And the thing that
so
Scott isn't mentioning that I see come out of it is it creates
mm,
a little mini community. The GMs talk to each other.
mm,
They're part of like this team. And some of them maintain connections outside because they've met this guy here, that woman there.
yeah,
And
yeah,
oh, you run Call of Cthulhu. I'm interested in Call of Cthulhu. Tell me about more about it.
mm,
yeah.
I've seen some of that
Yeah.
happen because of it.
And I don't know if anybody else is doing it.
Yeah.
We started doing it the first year, and people were like, "You're gonna do what?" And
Yeah.
it's only about an hour. Maybe I think last year might have been an hour and a half.
mm,
But I
Hmm.
think that people get a lot out of it, especially new GMs. If you've never GM before, you come and
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh," and the other guys help them out, and the other girls help them out.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought, and I think it's a good program to have.
Yeah, I actually
So
thought that was a really good idea as well, and I think it was one of the earliest things I looked at. So you do have your own channel, and I saw that you put that up on the channel, and I watched it
yeah,
through, and I was sort of struck by the idea that, or I was just shocked to think, why hasn't someone done this before? I mean, I presume somebody somewhere has, but I've never heard
maybe
of like
I
Gen
don't know.
Con
Yeah,
No, I've run
doing it,
yeah,
because
into it.
I've
Yeah.
I've run a
yeah,
Gen Con and I've never
yeah,
been part of.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's a
I've missed it.
yeah,
logistical challenge. It's a challenge to pull together.
yeah,
It's just, these, and we got lucky in a way because we live in an era where these tools, like we're talking on
Mm,
right now, have become easier to use.
yeah.
Years
Well, and I
past, they
think,
weren't so easy.
yeah, part of it's because of COVID that we
yeah,
have this stuff. Like
right.
I never
Yeah.
would have. I'm like Dresden when it comes to electronics. Dave and Pedro both know if
Yep.
I touch a computer, eventually it's going to break and it's going to do something that wouldn't do for anybody else, and it won't do for
Oh,
me. So,
yeah.
it would do for anybody else, and it won't do for
Mm.
me. And but like learning how to use Zoom, um, give us the ability to reach out to a whole bunch of people and not have to be like, hey, we're going to meet at this bar. Now we can just do it. You can do it from the privacy of your own home. You can show up. You don't
Yeah.
even need to have your camera on,
Mm,
and you can interact and ask some questions or learn some stuff. And I think it's
Well,
actually a
and
great
and the
thing.
other the other thing, speaking of communication, that we do is we have Discord channels, so that people can clue into, we'll have a Discord channel that people can sign up for the general convention. If GMs are looking for games, they'll have a place to go for that. If there's a special announcement, we can do it right over Discord.
From the
And it
vendors.
just allows attendees to be
Mhm.
plugged in real time, right, to events that are happening,
That's
and
something
what's
that we're doing
occurring,
this
and
year.
if there's an open game, or if there's a so we wanted to give attendees that opportunity and that feel that they're literally involved right in the moment, right?
Mm.
And it's
Yeah.
and they have that ability to communicate with other attendees as well. It just gives that kind of open feel to the convention.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you're a GM and you run a game, most of the time those people leave your table, you might not see them again for the following year.
Mm-hmm.
But what if you could be like, hey, here's my email.
Mm.
We could
Yeah.
talk, and who knows what will develop from that. Maybe you'll end up in a game
True.
together. Maybe you'll exchange ideas. Maybe the following
Mm-hmm.
year, those same people will come back and want to play a game with you again. It's
Maybe you'll
all
get
part of
married.
building that community. Maybe you'll get
Maybe.
married. Yeah,
That's right.
You never know.
it happens. It happens. So,
So
um,
I've got a few minutes left before I have to I kind of have to start winding down here, but I want to squeeze in a few more questions.
Yeah.
I guess I wanted to maybe if you guys can take your modesty caps off and
what's that?
tell me.
I have a modesty cap.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm used to talking to fourth and fifth graders, ladies and gentlemen, and these folks are not
You
connecting with
still are
my
talking to fourth
analogies.
and
I don't
fifth
know what it is.
graders. So,
Um,
Yeah.
setting those aside, why do you think so it sounds like it's doubled in attendance
yeah.
since you started 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Well, yeah, it started
Why?
four, but really, really three.
Really three.
So,
Yeah.
Why has it doubled? Why do people keep coming back to Rising Phoenix? Like
because
just
people keep staying there enjoying it.
Yeah.
That's
And they
what we're
tell their
hearing.
friends. And they
The
tell
other
their
thing
friends
we
they had
do,
a good
the
time.
other thing we do is we send a flyer out at the EverCon to everybody that comes gets a questionnaire, and
Mm-hmm.
the responses have been overwhelmingly positive, like 99.7% positive, which is amazing.
Well, I think from a little bit more of a stepped back look at the con, it's it's the minute you walk in the door, you're at a convention. It's small enough where you do feel that sense of community. We work hard to
Mm-hmm.
foster that sense of community. It's well run. We are super responsive to our GMs, to our vendors, to our attendees. Um, People feel like they matter.
They
Um,
do matter.
and it fosters that sense of you're hanging out with a bunch of friends, right? You're
Yeah.
you're going to a place. I mean, it's bigger than your friend's house, but
mm,
but you're
Yeah.
there, and the people who run it love what they do. We are
Yeah.
doing this because we love it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that shines through in just about everything that we do.
Yeah. And we love
That's
what
my
they
modesty
do
cap off.
running.
nicely
No.
said.
And it's
Yeah.
nicely said, Petra. No, and we really support what they want to create. They want to create a fun little event at their game table, and we're there to give them the tools that they might need to be able to have the opportunity to do that. And and that seems to really bring it to people, and cause them to talk about it year round. And it certainly does help that Scott will tell anyone about the convention, including the
Ooh,
mailman. I'm sure.
ask,
I'm
ask
sure he
Pedro.
does.
Ask the Pedro. I've been in restaurants and walked over to other people. I see a gamer thing on their shirt.
Yeah.
I'll go talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will never stop promoting it because you know what, it's a good thing, and I want everybody to experience it and to join our community. I really do. And that being said, if you're listening right now and if you don't have your badge yet, we do still have badges for sale.
Link
Um,
below.
I
Yep.
totally believe that we're going to run out of badges this year. And so if you don't have your badge, you might want to grab it
Go
and
buy
and
now.
experience the fun that is Rising Phoenix Game Hunt.
Supply is limited. Buy now.
That's right. You can get your badge for an amazingly low price of but only for
Our
the
weekend
next.
right now is $55.
Ah, okay, got it. Got
Mhm.
it.
If you come at the door, if we have any badges left, a weekend badge is $70. So save your money. Come
Yeah.
right now.
Save money. Plan your
Buy
weekend.
one for your friend. They're nice gifts.
Where do you want to take the convention? Where do you see the
Oh,
convention
there's
in
another
the
question
future?
altogether.
This is the.
Yeah, we're gonna table that one.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
Is that for part two?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be part two, maybe next year.
We can do
Right
a
now
debriefing. You should come back. Like, you all should come
we could
back
do that.
after this,
We'd
Yeah,
love
it'd be
to,
fun.
for
and when
sure.
you
That would be
all
fun.
look like frazzled
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
Maybe
tired
not
and
Monday.
like you look hungover but you're completely sober,
Sure.
but it's just you're exhausted, and I'll be fresh faced and bright eyed and bushy tailed, and you all be like, oh, nothing went.
What we
Oh,
want to what we
oh.
want to do
Definitely
is
not Monday. Definitely
Yeah,
not
till
Monday.
Yeah,
the
we'll
Monday
do it.
after
We'll do it
con.
at the crack of
We'll be like,
dawn on
no
Monday morning.
pictures. No
You'll be
pictures,
there
please.
alone.
That'd be great.
What we
The
really want
camera
to do
will
though is
definitely be off.
we want to continue to make the best event that we can.
Hmm.
And I want to leave it at that for now.
That's the coward's way out, but I'll
No, it's
accept it
not.
for now.
It's not.
I'll accept a
I have never
rain
been a
check,
coward,
an
so
IOU on that answer, and we'll
Mhm.
get you back. We'll get you all back
that'd be
after
great.
the convention, and
And,
you'll see the
and
before
thank
Yeah.
you for
pictures and
coming, Matt.
after.
And folks, Matt's going to be with us at the convention. He's going to be filming some and recording some of our panels for us. So
Right.
maybe you'll be able to see him on his show.
That's right.
And we're very happy that Matt met us, and he's going to join us. So.
I'm very happy that you're slumming it low enough to come approach me
Oh my
to
God! Please.
Oh,
you're
come on.
you're coming down from the mount like Greek gods to
Dude, this is feeding
Oh,
right
boy.
into your
anoint me with
PR
your
thing,
wisdom
man.
and
Yeah.
kindness.
I
So.
don't think this is good for any of us. Yeah.
Oh, it's good for me. Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay.
Oh, good.
You'll
Okay.
take it?
Great.
You can tell Pedro all you want.
Excellent.
So,
Thank you.
but
Well, thank
thank you.
you all very much for joining me. Like I said,
welcome.
the people that I have on the program are people that I'm interested in talking to, people who I think are doing really cool stuff, things that I'm interested in, things that I think you would be interested in as well. And everything I said about, the small amount that I've seen from behind the scenes, the people that I met are all very sincere, and they're all trying very hard, and they keep returning to this idea of like everybody kind of meeting up and being inclusive, and everybody sort of just having a good time gaming and making friendships and bonds and connections and all that. That's all very sincere, and I can vouch for that on the behind the scenes part of it. So I highly recommend. I have a link to Rising Phoenix's website in the description below. If you haven't gotten your badges, if you haven't, if you happen to have like even just a day or a few hours free on that weekend, I think it's the 19th, 20th, and 21st of April. I highly recommend that you check them out and consider it. It was something that you know going to game conventions was something that it just helped me to get out. Like I got a little bit out of my shell. I like to be in a little small Zoom box with people. That's how I like to live my life. But going to conventions, meeting others like myself and not like myself, which I think is also very important, was a great experience. And I think that this is a great opportunity. So I highly recommend you click that link and at least check it out. So for all of you who have tuned in tonight, thank you so much. I know it's been a long time since my last stream. It's been a few months. I'm hoping now that things are slowing down a little bit to get more streams going out. But thank you for as ever for your viewership. But I hope to see all of you again on another episode of Roleplayer with 1,000 Faces. And finally, of course, I just want to say, Scott, David, and Petra, thank you so much for coming on
Thank
the
you.
big program.
Thank you for having us. It's been
Yeah,
awesome.
no, appreciate it.
And we
Yeah,
will
it's been a
come
great
back.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be
It
happy
was
to come
awesome.
back.
Thank you.
Have a
Peace
great
out.
night.
Okay.
See you all
Good
at the
night,
con.
everyone.